Good morning and welcome to Distribution Strategy Group Best Practice Series. Today, we're going to be focusing on best practices in pricing and costing. And of course, as we all know, it is about profitability at the end of the day. So what we're going to learn today are some of the absolute best approaches for getting better pricing. That's on the customer side, also on the costing side. We've done a survey that will partly inform our presentation today from Greg Smith, whom I will introduce in just a moment. But first, I'd like to share from our sponsors. Our first sponsor is actually Distribution Strategy Group, Demand RX. Question is, what would you do if you had a better understanding of where your customer was spending in product categories that you sell? What if you could see where the gaps were? As shown in this simple slide here, there's a gap of 36,000 for product category A, 22,000 for product category B, 16,000 for product category C. So there's a big opportunity in these three areas that is not being realized. DemandRx provides this guidance for your data, for your customers, and for your categories, and you can use it to grow wallet share by refocusing the dialogue, to define the ideal customer profile, ICP, and then also using the ideal customer profile to target the right prospects from our database of 48 million companies, and then finally to measure market share. So use DemandRx to grow wallet share and market share with existing customers and prospects. I'd now like to welcome Sandy Leon from Epicor.
Thanks, Jonathan. We're happy to be a sponsor today. Glad to be here. Next slide.
I don't have a next slide.
Oh, okay. Do
you have something you want to share?
I do.
I bet.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to just jump in and kind of tell you a little about Epicor because I don't think I'm going to be able to access the slides just yet.
Okay.
So just kind of a little bit about Epicor. We are here for the hardworking businesses that make, move, or sell. And when it comes to the move part, the distribution industry, we've been in this distribution industry for over 50 years. We know your world, we get your special distribution challenges, and we can help solve them. So when we talk to our new customers and we ask them why they chose Epicor, the thing that we hear most often is that we get them and our software is a right fit for what they do right out of the box. I'm looking forward to hearing the results of the survey today and hearing best practices. One thing we've seen at Epicor is that there is no greater profit lever that you can pull than a disciplined pricing strategy. All too often, distributors either charge customers too little or too much. Either one of those have pitfalls and will leave money on the table. Our ERPs at Epicor use analytics to simplify the task of getting the prices you charge closer to their optimal level. For example, our ERPs give you the flexibility to set your prices to maintain your margins while meeting customer and market demands. This includes things like contract job-based pricing or promotional pricing, second pass discounting, changes, exceptions, sales analysis, and even more. If you're looking for new technology that's going to help you optimize your pricing strategies, we'd love to talk. Feel free to reach out to me or visit our website. Thanks. Jonathan, back to you.
Thank you so much, Sandy. And we'd like to welcome next our presenter, Greg Smith from G Group Holdings. Greg, welcome. Greg has deep experience in distribution as a strategist for growth and profitability. He's done a lot of work in crafting effective pricing strategies, leading to significant growth in EBIT for other distributors. And he's actually developed an innovative B2B software solution at a company called Patternology that Greg runs. Suffice it to say, Greg is well versed in the topic that we're going to hear about today. And Greg, take it away. Actually, I'll say one more thing before Greg takes it away. We do welcome questions. We'll make a determination about whether to answer it in the moment, but there's a Q&A button down there. And feel free to ask questions and we'll do our best to answer them. Greg, welcome.
Perfect. Thank you, Jonathan. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, I guess, depending on where you're at. So let me just pull up the slides here for a second. So I want to spend a minute on that wonderful introduction, Jonathan. So thank you. So as I kind of look at what I've done over the years, the one that still pains me a little bit is patternology. Patternology was developed with a significant amount of tequila and a cigar. Actually, one night by the fire pit, thinking it was a good idea. It was my foray into developing software, and I can barely hit the on button on a computer. But all kidding aside, it's a great piece of software, and it took 3 years, and I initially thought it was going to be 3 months. And so, as distributors kind of talk about this digital journey and the AI journey that they're on now, I think it's important to realize it will take some time. And as you think about your tech stack, just take that first step, start building it, and eventually you will get there. But it's really about taking that first step and making it happen. So enough of that. So what are our goals and objectives for today? It's really kind of talk about strategies, right, for effective pricing. Margin enhancement. It's a highlight of the role of an importance of a pricing or margin czar, depending on whatever title or however you want to look at it. Is provide actionable best practices to optimize pricing processes, explore methods to lower costs and goods and improve margins, examine the impact of cost to serve. We're going to spend a little bit of time talking on that today because I think that's very important. Customer profitability. If you look at the average distributor invoicing, depending on the data, depending on the customer mix, but the vast majority of distributors, 40 to 55, 60% of their invoices that they process are actually money losing invoices. They don't even cover the cost, right? So it's important that we look at that as part of our overall profitability strategy. We'll offer some insights, right, on achieving sales team adoption. Again, there is no magic bullet there. It takes time, it takes work, it's heavy lifting, but to the extent that you can do that, your success will be much greater. And we'll review some e-commerce pricing methodologies. Again, there's no real secret there. We'll talk about kind of in front of the login, behind the login, and my encouragement to most distributors is the first thing you want to do with an e-commerce platform is understand what is your strategy, because you've got multiple options there in terms of an e-commerce strategy. And once you understand your strategy, then you can understand your pricing methodology. Let's jump into some survey. So this one is, what strategies have you found most effective, most effective in lowering your product costs? Right? Negotiating better terms with suppliers was number one. That's great, right? We're in a different environment today than we were 3, 4 years ago with supply chain issues. As supply chain issues continue to ease, we bring more and more production back to the US. There's still product categories that are a mess, but they're getting better. But as that changes, your ability to negotiate with your suppliers does improve. Switching manufacturers, that's an interesting one. I actually know distributors that switch commodity manufacturers every 2 years. When I first heard that, I thought, that's crazy. I still kind of think it's crazy because I believe, my kind of old school thinking is the partnership between the manufacturers. So I still believe that. And I still think there's a lot of value in building that long-term strategy, right, together to go to market together. But there are distributors that will switch up. You can't do that on gear, and it's maybe a little more difficult with lighting, but certainly with commodities and some other product categories, you can do that. So, and obviously by our survey results, we have distributors that are doing that. Bulk purchasing for volume discounts, that's good. There's nothing new there. I think there might be some takeaways that we'll glean from today that will help kind of enhance the results of that, right? As you do that, kind of different ways of thinking about it, and implementing technology solutions for cost tracking. Again, I think as we embark on this journey, that's still technology is still kind of taking a backseat in some respects, but I would dare say that these results, 5 years ago, that probably would have been less than 10, substantially less. And implementing more special pricing agreements. We're going to spend some time talking about today. I was encouraged to see that a little above 40%. I think most distributors are in one camp or the other. And again, we'll talk about that a little further on. Jonathan, any thoughts on this at all? Was this surprising to you, or?
Well, a broad comment on the survey. In any survey, there is a bias in the people who respond to the survey. And so I think what we're going to see through the discussion today involving the survey, the bias among this group is that they're probably further along in applying good pricing and costing techniques than the entire distribution population.
Okay.
So yeah, that's just a broad comment as opposed to something specific here.
It makes sense. So as we talk about lowering product cost, right? What are some things that you can do? So you got special pricing agreements, right? There's pros and cons to those. There's a lot of work in executing them, but you can generate substantial margin enhancement by utilizing them. But there are a lot of work to do up front to enter them into your ERP system, as well as to track them. There are softwares available now that can help you do that, but it's still a lot of work. So from the data I've seen, most distributors that would call kind of a stock and flow distributor, where they do something like 70% of their volume goes through stock and flow. The other 30% is project business or job business. That might vary 5 or 10% based on the year. But for those folks, most of them have SBAs on 10 to 15% of their inventory. 10 or 15% of their transactions. But if you look at the high EBITDA distributors, that number is closer to 50, 60, 70% of their through stock revenue is tied to some sort of an SPA, right? Special pricing agreement. So yes, they're a lot of work, but there's a lot of incremental margin if it's done right. So let me give you one quick example. So a manufacturer may give you a SPA that includes 800, 900, 1,000 items. And that SPA is tied to a specific customer or a group of customers, either by category or by just grouping them together. The key there is figure out what those top 10, 15, 20 items are. Maybe it's 50 items that the customer actually buys on a regular basis and buys some volume with. Those are the ones that you go to the customer and say, hey, I've just locked this SPA in for you. Here's what we can do. I need some additional revenue, right? We need to grow this piece, this category. We need to do all that. You go after it from a marketing perspective. But frankly, the rest of the products that are sit on that SPA, you do not touch the sell price. You let the matrix carry over the sell price. So ultimately, what you end up with is a lower cost on that product when you sell it to that customer, that group of customers, right? So make sure that you don't allow the sales team to go in and say, great, I got this 800 item SPA. I'm going to go in and do cost plus 20% across the board on all 800 items, right? Think about product sensitivity to that customer base. So make sure that doesn't happen, right? Big buys. Right. Again, I don't think there's any surprise there. You can do that several times during the year. You should be working to negotiate a one-time discount over and above any rebates, extended terms, all that stuff, which most distributors will do. Most manufacturers will do, depending on factory load and a whole bunch of other things. But doing big buys, again, if you look at the top tier distributors from a margin perspective, big buys is part of their strategy. Product cost. This is a sensitive one. And if there's any manufacturers on the line, I apologize ahead of time. But this is a sensitive one because you've got rep agencies involved and you get manufacturers involved. But to the extent that you can identify for widget A, you've got a cost in a region of 89 cents or 90 cents. And in other regions, you've got a cost of $1, $1.10, $1.05, 98 cents, whatever the case may be. If you can negotiate with a manufacturer so that 90 cents is across your entire footprint, that's what your objective should be. Not always easy. Sometimes you have to do it as an SPA, blanket SPA, because they don't want to get that price into the marketplace. Sometimes they request you to hide that price, take it as a one line item discount on a PO, however you need to do it. But in a lot of cases, doing that kind of cost normalization across your entire footprint makes a lot of sense and can add incremental margin. Negotiations, right? Ask. Simply ask. I need to do this. What's the best way to do this? And again, a lot of manufacturer, either reps or factory people, will help you achieve that, but they may have to pull it out of a different pocket, so to speak, right? It's come out of the right pocket or the left pocket. Depends whether it's marketing funds or is it, production funds or some other fund that the manufacturer has. And speaking of kind of marketing funds, if you talk to a lot of manufacturers, a significant portion of them never pay out, and a lot of them only pay out 50 to 60% of the budgeted marketing funds that they have allocated. And the point there is that most or a lot of distributors don't use all of their marketing funds that they have available to them. So not only should you use all of your marketing funds, you should ask for someone else's, because towards the end of the year, depending on when their year ends, they're apt to give it to you if you can provide a good story. Hats and t-shirts don't work anymore, but if you've got something else you want to achieve that makes sense to the manufacturer, then ask for it. And again, if you lower your product cost, don't give it away, right? We're going to talk about the best way to kind of handle cost basis in your ERP system and what's that look like. And some of this is culture, right, for you. Some of it's going to be strategy, but please don't give it away. Hide it from your sales view cost if you can, right? Don't let sales see that. If you don't want it to impact your average cost or your landed cost, then do it as a line item discount on your PO. Figure out a way to kind of hide that cost. Otherwise, all you're going to do is allow the sales team to give it away. Again, if your ERP system, my recommendation is don't use PO cost or as your sales cost basis. And again, we'll talk more about that. And again, using PO discount rather than line item pricing to get the number, especially on big buys. So that's another tool. The message here is, if you negotiate, you do all the work to negotiate a lower end of stock cost, please don't give it away. Keep it for a rainy day. So here's another one. Do you use specific tools or software to manage your SPAs? 28% do. That's fantastic. Again, they're becoming more complex. Significant portions still do not. Again, not surprised there. Excel spreadsheet, which you can still do it that way, or the information out of your ERP system. I think manufacturers are jumping on this bandwagon. I'm hearing more and more about manufacturers working with third parties to help improve their process. Doesn't necessarily mean it's in the best interest of distribution, but at least there's starting to be some accountability. So think about it as something that you can add to your tech stack. If you start to get over 20%, then you probably want to think about some sort of software to help you manage that process to make sure you're tying out proper cost of goods, especially in a market where costs fluctuate substantially. You want to make sure you're applying your SPA credit against the most appropriate cost basis, the one that's appropriate for you to get the biggest rebate or the biggest credit. Select your 4 highest priority objectives related to pricing and costing. So it's changing pricing behaviors in sales and customer service. Understand that. Centralizing pricing policy with a pricing leader. That's good. These are all weighted average. So implementing best practices in pricing process, lowering cost of goods using best practices, measuring and applying cost to serve metrics, achieving sales team adoption. That's a huge one. An e-commerce pricing methodology. So in this chart here, and Jonathan, correct me if I'm wrong, but as I look to the 3 on the left, on the right of the chart, those are the ones that are the furthest away from 1, and therefore the one that the survey is telling us that folks are most concerned about. Is that correct?
Other way,
The other way.
The shortest bars are the highest priorities.
There. Okay. All right. Good. Thank you. So changing pricing behaviors in sales and customer service and centralizing pricing policy with a pricing leader. Again, no surprise there. We'll talk about all of this a little further on in our discussion. Okay, e-commerce pricing. So as I kind of alluded to before, this really is about what is your e-commerce strategy? Is it to launch an e-commerce site that is fully branded with your current brand, as a tool to help existing customers and possibly bring in some other customers that are in your trading area? Then really the pricing that's shown is somewhat irrelevant, right? You're not looking to get orders from 3,000 miles away. So the pricing that is shown could be your list pricing, could be your highest pricing. You want to make sure that your matrix is tied to your e-commerce pricing so that what's shown in e-commerce without a login is the highest price. You want to make sure you eliminate the conflict. You don't want a customer going on, not logging in, looking at a product, getting a price, logging in and seeing a higher price, right? So you got to be careful of that. But essentially it's use your highest price. That's what's shown in your e-commerce site until someone logs in. And then it's about getting the sales team, marketing team, lockstep, go out, train customers, and build that kind of grassroots effort to get customers to use the website or your e-commerce platform to process kind of redundant standard orders, right? And it also allows the customer to go in after hours and look at pricing and look at invoicing and all that stuff, right? That's all kind of basic. But to the extent you can get customers doing that, it lowers your cost to serve, right? Which is a plus. So that's kind of one market strategy. The other one is,
Greg, can I throw an idea here? So I think there's a balance in getting this pricing. The one there's 2 things that we don't want to have happen. We don't want a big customer to see a price on the website before they log in that's better than their contract price. That's one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is we don't want somebody to see a price without logging in that looks like the price that your absolute smallest customer would get. It's so high that it scares them off. So it's really about getting that balance between the Goldilocks just right price. I would submit that the pricing that needs to show on the website looks a little bit like the pricing that your mid-size customers, just that point between mid-size and small, that's about the pricing that needs to be shown. Does that make sense?
It does. The risk you have there is, though, the smaller customers that are paying a high price, you end up with that where they go on, they're not logged in, they see a price, they log in, now their price is higher.
So you're saying make it the absolute best, highest price possible that you show on the website?
Yes, because you're not trying to sell to anyone outside of your existing customer base or trading territory. and you're making it well known that the way you get your pricing and better pricing is to register and go online, Mr. Customer.
Okay.
Don't use the e-commerce platform until you register. All right. So that's kind of the messaging. Now, your point is well taken as relates to the other side of that equation, the flip side of that coin, which is, all right, I want a e-commerce platform that is not branded. No one knows where the stuff comes from, or has a separate brand in the marketplace. There are there's a dozen distributors that have e-commerce platforms that are not branded with their brand, have a separate brand, and they go to market within that e-commerce platform as a high volume, low price e-commerce option. Right? That's completely different. There, you scrape the internet, you get other sources of data and information, and you figure out how you want to price that product and move it. Within that application or that strategy, you do want to sell to anybody and everybody in the world, right? But that's different than looking at just a e-commerce platform to support your existing customers and lower your cost to serve. Make sense?
Point taken. Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. So this is a hot topic. It was a hot topic in our survey results. Again, there's no magic bullet here, but to the extent that you can do even some of these things to help your sales force understand the why, right? Why are we doing it? How we're doing it, and this is the benefit to you, and let them realize that, see that. It helps your adoption of a successful price matrix project. Another point here, which I actually haven't mentioned anywhere in any of our slides, is I think a good policy is once you create or in the process of creating a price matrix and you're ready to launch that project, put together a cross-discipline group of folks to manage it, track it, have conversations with the sales team, and kind of help this project succeed. And one of the things I always tell folks to do is take your worst, I say worst, probably isn't the right word, take the salesperson who overrides pricing all the time, thinks they know the price of 30,000 items across their customer base of 50 or 100, whatever that happens to be. Take that person and put them on the committee. If you can take him or her, and get them exposed to what other people do, the data, understanding why it's done that way, understanding the analytics kind of behind it, they can be your best evangelist. And once other folks see that, then they'll start to kind of get on the bus. And frankly, there's another point here, which is the president of the organization needs to be actively involved in this process. And 2, 3, 4 months in, if you've got a half a dozen or whatever that number is of sales folks that are not kind of getting on the bus and still doing their own thing, the president needs to pick up the phone and call and say, hey, Joe, I really need you to jump on the bus here. I need you to get involved. I need you to understand. I need you to stop doing what you're doing. And it's amazing the impact that has on the success of a project like this. And then also one other thing I'll say is another really bad habit I've seen folks do is you've got a sales leader who doesn't believe, he's on the committee but doesn't believe in the project, thinks that they're taking away the rights of the salespeople and all that stuff, their ability to negotiate and all that, and that's really not the intent of Sales Matrix. So you launch the project, you get a couple grumbles, you got a sales leader or a high volume salesperson that comes to the sales leader and says, hey, I don't think we should do this, or I want to continue to override. And the sales leader says, yeah, go ahead. We won't tell anybody. Right. So the minute that happens, you start to undermine what's going on. then the project will fail. So again, no magic bullet, but keep, put together a group and keep communicating with the sales team. Have you implemented any new pricing strategies in the past year? Yes, 60%. Yay. Good job. No, and I'm planning to. So it's difficult. It's not easy. The metaphor is rugby. It is not for the faint of heart. It's mathematically, analytically, it's not hard. Implementation is difficult, and building upon it. And we'll see that in one of these. Here's a classic slide, right? What was the outcome of your pricing strategy? Significant improvement, 11%, 12%, fantastic. The vast majority, I see this in every survey, moderate improvement margins. It's probably an EBITDA improvement of maybe 50 basis points, maybe 100, something like that. It's generally pretty small. And the reason it doesn't, it goes from moderate, or how it goes from moderate to significant, is all in how you handle the implementation and what happens after you go live. All right, that's how you shift over to significant improvement. Most of the time they just launch it. It's like, great, we did it. Now, would everybody please follow the matrix? And there's no accountability, no KPIs to see what's actually going on. None of that happens. Or if there is, there's no kind of structure behind it to make sure folks are doing what it is you're asking them to do. And then no noticeable change. Again, you could, the margin improvement, the moderate improvement, and no noticeable change, you put those together, that has everything to do with implementation and follow-up. How do you measure the success? Improve profit margins. Yep, great. Increase revenue, customer retention rates, market share growth. By the way, all of those are possible with the right strategic price matrix. You actually make customers happier if you do it correctly. You used to do tons of customer councils. Ironically, price was never 1, 2, or 3. Most of the time it was 4 or 5, and they would bring up price as a concern. You start to peek under the covers and realize it wasn't the actual price of an item that the contractor was worried about. It was the variation in pricing that they were paying on the same product over a short period of time. Right? So think about that. They walk in today, they deal with Greg at the counter, Greg charges them $1. Next week, they buy the same product, but they talk to Jonathan. Jonathan charges them $1.10. 3 weeks later, they talk to Samantha. Samantha charges them 85 cents. That's where your customers get upset and say, what's the right price? Right? Now they're thinking the 85 cents is the right price. So you've been overcharging me. The other 2 people overcharged me. Right? So it's that variation that creates distrust within your customer base. So standardizing that pricing. And by the way, overrides undermine this, of course, and overrides undermine your e-commerce applications. You won't get a significant amount of your customers to adopt your e-commerce platform as long as the sales team, either intentionally or unintentionally, has conversations with the customer that says, hey, you got to come to me because I'll fix your pricing. So the customer won't be placing e-commerce orders if they think they can make a call to their salesperson inside or out to get a better price than what they see on the e-commerce site after their login. So you got to kind of tie all this together and how detrimental it is to a successful e-commerce launch, as well as a successful price matrix project.
Greg, with regard to the answers on that slide, they mentioned the customer retention, market share growth. Distributors are really mostly not in a great position to measure those. So I'm willing to believe the improved profit margins, the increased revenue as measurements, but very, very, very few distributors can measure the retention rate and market share growth.
I completely agree. Yeah, that's why your market share growth, your tool, a quick plug there. I've seen it a couple of times. It's a fantastic tool to do that, right? To look at market share. Yeah, and we used to have programs for customer retention. I've talked to other distributors that, a customer will go away, just stop buying, and it'll take them 6 months to a year to figure out that, oh my God, the customer stopped buying. Now, if they stop buying altogether, maybe they'll figure it out, in less time. But usually what happens is they'll start gradually reducing purchases, or they'll stop purchasing a product category that they always purchased before. And you won't know it for 6 8 months because the overall purchases might be higher, but they stop purchasing certain product categories. So having a process, a plan, a strategy in place to measure customer retention by product category. And by the way, it's not difficult. Most of that data is available in your ERP system. But it's important to do. Customer profitability, right? The key to doubling your EBITDA. So today we're going to really just kind of focus on the top two, right? Which is pricing, cost of goods, which we've had some conversations already about, as well as some cost to serve. All right, we're going to talk about those two things. We don't have enough time today to talk about operations and sales performance, but obviously they all tie into how do we make our customers more profitable. So as we talk about pricing, certainly data will set you free. Everybody's heard it, but it's true. But you don't have to go down data. Most distributors have the data they need within their ERP system. And most of the time it's easily accessible. I think what happens though is either the distributors try to put a too finite a point on what they want to achieve with the data or the results they want to get, or they just get overwhelmed. All right, but just realize that the data is there. Try not to, boil the ocean on day one, right? Just start and pick an easy kind of project to work on. You've got the data, now pick the project. Maybe it's customer retention, right? Any of that, just pick anything. Are we strategically pricing items based on true market sensitivity and inventory strategy? Do you have an inventory strategy, right? A lot of folks over COVID, yeah, our inventory strategy was we invested millions and millions of dollars in inventory. Great. My second conversation with those folks during COVID was, how much premium price have you put on those products that you invested significant dollars in? 80% of the time, zero, right? You didn't do that. You had the inventory. Nobody else had the inventory in your marketplace, or as much as you did. Did you, hey, we're only going to sell it strategically to our existing customers? A lot of distributors did that, but very few of them actually put any kind of a puffer or any kind of a price enhancement on it to cover the cost of carrying that inventory, because you did have increased costs to carry the inventory. How should we price customer segments, right? We'll talk about that a little bit. Special pricing agreements, we touched on that a bit. Are we managing overrides? We'll talk about that more. Do we compensate to encourage profit behavior? There's a couple different ways that can happen. And frankly, I think the verdict's out on whether or not that has a big impact on salesperson behavior. I've known distributors that have, come up with a rather complex commission plan. And my commission plan philosophy is always KISS, right? Keep it simple. They need a calculator, they're not a calculator. They need a computer to kind of calculate what their commissions are every month. Don't do it, right? But they did to a certain degree, and they tied it to profitability, item level, product category level, all that stuff to try to move salespeople to make different decisions. Is a big fat goose egg. It did not move the needle and confuse the sales team. And I know of a couple of folks that have done that. So But is there a way that you can do it on a kind of low level to at least encourage it? Yes, there is. And it's another tool. And it may work more or better for you folks. What processes are in place to protect margins? All right, we'll talk about KPIs and protections. And are you measuring performance to plan? Profit drivers. John, I think since I like to talk, I think it's 9:41. I think I got to move it along a little bit. What are your thoughts?
Yeah,
Yeah.
all the rest is good. I think you just have to prioritize a little bit. So, yeah.
Got it. I'll do that. I won't spend a lot of time on this slide. I think probably everybody on the call has seen this slide in one variation or another 55 times. And even Sandy mentioned it. She's absolutely right. If increasing your selling price by 2% has the largest impact to EBITDA, doing all three of those, yes, of course. But selling more volume does not get you to the same end game. So here's some things when we talk about pricing strategies. So here's some things to think about. Yes, strategic pricing matrix. The vast majority that have done this do what I refer to as kind of a three-dimensional model. You can do 1, 2, 3, and you can even do 4. You can even, there are some software companies out there now doing dynamic pricing, right? Which of course you have in other industries, the airline, hotels, that's all dynamic pricing. Distribution hasn't gotten there yet. And frankly, I don't see it for the next 5 to 10 years. So the basic model is something like a three-dimensional pricing arrangement, which is you segment your customers by type. That could be as simple as a residential contractor, commercial contractor, could be plumbing house, could be, whatever it is, industrial, whatever you want to do. But to segment your customers by some type of, by a type, and then by customer size, right? Do they buy $10,000 a year from you, or do they buy, $4.5 million from you? Part of that customer size analysis should also be what is their market potential, right? So if you use our standard today, I think is around 75,000 per contractor employee. So if he's got 10 men, he's buying $750,000 worth of product. You're currently getting 50,000, right? There's huge potential with that customer. So you want to be cognizant of that. Now, if that customer's wife works for the competitor, you're not going to get it. And frankly, I would treat them as a small customer, and I would raise the prices because obviously they're coming to you for a product they can't get from the other person. But if it's just a new customer or there's opportunity there, then when you size or when you place that customer in the matrix, be cognizant of that. And then of course the other one is product price sensitivity. You could go down a rabbit hole and do some significant analysis on product sensitivity. Out of the gate, I don't suggest you do that. It's pretty simple to do. And you just take your products and dump them into 4 different groups based on, you could either do it on dollars. I recommend doing it on units sold. Cost view. This one is interesting one for a lot of distributors, and there's folks that think about this from a couple different angles. My perspective is pretty simple. And this is cost view that the salesperson sees. So let me just kind of share that with you. Most ERPs allow you to have multiple cost bases, and most of the time you can pick which cost view you want the salesperson to see. My philosophy is you don't want the vast majority, and you can do this by user authorizations. You don't want the vast majority of salespeople to see your replacement or average or landed average cost. You want them to see what I would call a sales cost of goods, which you control. Now, the basis of the sales cost of goods could be, your average cost, landed cost, replacement cost, whatever it is. But from there, you've actually added a puffer, or you've added some additional gross margin to that item based on product sensitivity. Is it an A item or a D item? And that's the cost basis that the salespeople see. You got no cost view. I have to tell you, there's distributors that are stock and flow distributors that are in the 10, 15, 20% EBITDA, which, as most of you on the phone know, the average is around 4 to 5. And those distributors don't show COGS don't show a cost view to their salespeople. The vast majority of salespeople, counter folks, inside sales folks, so on and so forth. They have a price that's presented. They've got some authority to move that price down or up, and that's it. They don't see COGS. So, but it's a philosophy, it's a culture. You don't get there overnight. Sales overrides. We'll talk about this a little further on too, but most salespeople use gross margin overrides that end in zeros and fives. We've seen this literally thousands of times. It all ends in zeros and fives, right? It's 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. Get them off the zeros and fives. Instead of doing 25, how about 26? How about 27 and a half? Something like that. And there's another kind of philosophy here, which is in the vast majority of matrices are cost plus. But you could also do list down as a discount. Those distributors that do list down, generally speaking, add another 100 to 200 basis points to their EBITDA, because it's a different philosophy, different discussion that your salespeople have with your customer, as well as you have internally with your sales folks, right? It's not about what you paid for something. You know, there's no correlation between what you pay for something and the market price. Zero correlation, right? We all like to tie it, but there really is no correlation whatsoever. Cell groups, you know, most of your cell groups that are used in your matrix build are incorrect. You got products in cell groups that sell at 30%, and you got products in that same cell group that might sell at 12, 17, 18%, right? So fix your cell groups. Good, better, best versus a single matrix price. That's another way to go to market, another way to price. Lock or limit the ability to change prices, again, by user authorization, and then SPAs. And here's some more, right? Gross margin on non-stock products. Most of the time, non-stock products, in my opinion, are woefully underpriced, given the cost to order, ship, bring them in, ship them to the customer, all that stuff. You know, your average, if you look at your average gross margin on non-stock products that cost under $500, that number should be close to 40, 45, 50. And most of the time it's maybe 500 basis points higher than the average gross margin of the distributor on a through stock. So C&D items, right? Make sure that you price C&D items higher. These are products that you don't sell that often, that it costs you more to carry. Make sure you're getting the extra margin. Pricing, you know, selective price increases. And, you know, you can do it strategically, which is on maybe B, C, and D items. You know, the problem is that I've seen some distributors, they'll do a 5% price increase across the board with everything, just because it's easier to do it, maybe implement. And that's where you get a lot of customer pushback and feedback. That's not the right approach. Whoops. And then lock pricing or limit override by a percentage, right? That's a good strategic move. Years ago, I locked our counter salespeople from overriding price. I thought I was going to have a mutiny. In actuality, what I received were several emails from counter folks that said, thank you. I didn't want to do it to begin with. I hated to do it. Customers in front of me. You know, now they'll ask me and I said, I'm sorry, we gave them the script, right? I don't have the ability to change pricing. Your contact, Joe, inside sales, is, you know, right in the room, right behind me. If you want to talk to Joe, I'm sure he'd be happy to look at it for you. 90%, 95%, the customer just, I just thought I'd ask, and grab the items and turn around, walk away. We didn't lose any sales because of it. Right, so just something to think about. But you got to give them the script. You got to train them. You got to teach them a little bit on what to say. Impact of an undisciplined pricing process. So again, this scatter plot, I can run this for every single company, and you know, if they don't have a disciplined pricing strategy, they all look the same. They really do. So if you go to the far right, those are larger customers. One is the price index. That's the average price paid, right, for a given product. You go to the right, those are larger customers. no surprise, they pretty much pay, the average price, what the price should be, because those larger customers are generally managed better, right? They might have an inside person, an outside person, they're just generally managed better. Where you see the chaos is on the left side of the screen in that little yellow box there. You've got, a lot of small customers that are actually buying better than the larger customers, right? For whatever reason, right? There's a variety of reasons. He's a friend, or it's the town, or whatever the case may be, right? None of them are good, but there's a variety of reasons why that happens. So be aware of this. This is easy enough to do, and kind of see where your charts are. Obviously, with a disciplined pricing process, two things happen. All the highs and lows of those transactions narrow. At the same time, you move your price index up, right? So the price index actually goes up because the value goes up of what you sold that product for. So you do two things. You kind of clean all that up and lower your index. Excuse me, raise your index. Here's the same thing as relates to products. Black is an A-rated item. Those are the most volume on the left-hand side. Those are the ones you turn every day, thousands and thousands of them. And on the far right, the gray, those are products that are D item products. And you can see the same thing here is you've got a lot of D items and even C's and B's that are sold less than the average price index for that product. So that's ultimately what you're trying to clean up. And in doing so, raise your margins. So we talked about zeros and fives. This just shows it. This is pretty typical. I could run this for most companies, and with slight variations, this is what you're going to see. The vast majority of folks, sales folks, when they override, they're doing zeros and fives. Get them off that, right? If you're doing 20, do 21 and a half, do 22, do 23, right? Do something, do 25, do 26. Just try to get them to break that habit of doing zeros and fives. You'd be surprised what the impact will be. Product sensitivity, again, it's not that difficult to do with your data, product sales data. If you haven't done it already, I recommend you do it. And you're just simply putting products into 4 buckets, right? And 25%, and it's the highest sensitivity. Those are the products you sell often. You could do it by units sold. You could do it by dollars. Again, I recommend units sold. This doesn't have to be complicated. Can you make it complicated? Yes. Can you take and create a core status and then put products within A, right? As a core product, put products in there, level them in there. So this is a low status of a product. Yeah, you can get really complicated. You can look at several selling attributes that go beyond units sold to calculate all this, but sometimes it just isn't worth it, right? Take that first step, do the baseline, create change the culture, create a culture of acceptance. And then if you want to go out and hire, there's lots of third-party companies that do this. Go out and hire a third-party company to help you bring it to the next level. Cost to serve. So this is one that has had some conversation in the industry over the years, really going back probably 20 years, but has had very little adoption, which I think is really important. And that is kind of understanding, and I think the next slide is the whale curve, but kind of understanding what is my cost to serve for a specific customer, then how can I improve that? And again, this is a really deep rabbit hole. I've seen companies spend 2 years trying to get the data right. I don't suggest doing that. You can very easily, at a high level, calculate whether a customer is is making you money or losing you money. You don't need to go down to start parceling labor in the warehouse by Joe who's cutting wire, and because they bought more wire, they get more of Joe's expense, right? Can you do that? Sure. Do you need to do that? The vast majority of times, no. And are there third-party companies that do this? Yes, right? But I think it's important to understand this. It really is, because this is what will move your needle significantly from an EBITDA perspective, is once you understand this. And again, you may have 10,000 customers, 20,000 customers. That old 80-20 rule, you have 10,000 customers, you probably have about 2,000 that make up 80-90% of your volume. Those are the ones you focus on. And really of those, you probably have 1,000 that really are going to move the needle. So figure out in those 1,000, not the 10,000, kind of what is their cost to serve. So obviously these are all the benefits to doing that.
Greg, we're going to need to go to the.
Yeah, we're running out of time. Oh my God.
We need to.
Sorry, everyone.
Oh, it's all great stuff.
Yeah.
So,
can these slides be shared, Jonathan? Are we gonna?
We'll share, just for everybody to know, we will be sharing the video. We don't typically share slides. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So let's move ahead to the sponsor slides at the end, or the next event slides. Thank you everybody for attending today. We've got more great content coming up over the next couple of weeks. A week from today, same time, same channel, the role of AI in DX, in digital transformation. We're going to have a panel featuring Alex Witzpolak and Jared Hellenick, talking about how AI is playing a role in digital transformation. Also, how AI itself is digital transformation. So be sure to tune in for that next week. Next slide, please. And then the week of August 7th, or the day of August 7th, same time, same channel, we're going to be talking with Wes Smith, who's the head of the National Association of Electrical Distributors. Wes ran a electrical distributor called Mayor and took it from several hundred million to 1.2 billion before it got sold to Rexel. He's got an absolutely unique and visionary perspective. So what we're going to be focusing on in that session is from energy policy to talent, industry insights with NAAD's Wes Smith. Greg, I'd like to thank you for a absolutely rich and informative, just absolute nuggets of gold on pricing and profitability. We look forward to having you back in future similar sessions, and thank you once again.
Thank you, Jonathan. My apologies to everybody. We didn't get through it, but there's lots to talk about.